Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. We're just waiting for everybody to join the call. We've got this beautiful full room of people. Absolutely thrilled to have you all. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes because Aziz has a big job to let a very full waiting room of people in. And then we'll kick off and so excited about this evening and what we are doing together.
Yeah.
Shout when you feel we should begin, Aziz. I'm assuming let's start at 6. Well, on the hour, on the dot,
Yeah.
on the hour.
Yeah.
Which hour it is depends on where the heck you are.
Well, it's 2 minutes to go. Okay, just trying to go live on Facebook too, and then we are going to kick off.
What is going on?
Believe. Sounds like sounds.
What's this on your time?
So next time I will get us a beautiful recorded music piece to hold us while we wait for
Yeah,
everybody to
we
join.
have to do this.
Yeah, we will have some beautiful music from wherever it is in Africa that we are conversing with.
I'm having a little problem with my Facebook page. I don't know why it's not loading. So if not, we're going to just kick off without going live on Facebook. Maybe I'll go live on YouTube instead.
Fantastic.
Ma.
And then you will just remember to record for us as well, Abdelaziz.
She is recorded already. Yes, it is recorded already. It's being recorded already. Let me just.
Hello, Robyn.
Hi, hello. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Nice to have you.
Thank you very much. It's very hard.
Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. I'm on the Isle of Wight.
Goodness. Thank you.
A short holiday for the weekend holiday before I start all over again.
Yeah, I see.
So if I cut off, that means the internet has gone, okay?
That's absolutely fine.
We hope it'll stay.
I hope so, I hope so.
Okay, well, I think it's time to start, and we'll try to fix that Facebook problem later, okay? Is everybody fine with that?
Fantastic.
Yeah? Okay, hello everybody. Good afternoon or good evening. It depends on where you are, maybe good morning for some of you. I'm not sure because there are people joining us from different places of the world, as Robyn will show later. We're so happy to have you. I'm Dr. Abdelaziz Zohri from University Hassan First Settat School of Business and Management. I'm a professor of research methods in business English. And Robyn and I are organizing this Africa Voices dialogue series on education. This has been prepared for quite a long time now, as Robyn will give details about it. So we welcome everybody, welcome you to this first session inauguration session. As you can see from the title, it's a series of dialogues on education. So it's going to be going for some time, inshallah, this year. We may have more than 4 dialogues, and everybody is welcome to join if you feel like this is your place. Okay, as you know, this is everybody's place if you are interested in education, even if you're not from Africa. But this is an intercontinental dialogue that interests everybody, because of course Africa is the future, as it is said, and as you have already seen in some of the emails I have shared with you. This is a quote. I don't remember who said that, but it is a very, very interesting saying, and everybody agrees with it, actually. So Africa is the future and will be the future for sure. And we can see that from the interest that is given to Africa around the world, not just in Africa. So we welcome you to this series of dialogues on education. And all that relates to education, of course, all the issues that relate to education. We're so happy and so enthusiastic and so excited to have you and to kick this off. So I'll give the floor to Robyn to say more about this series of dialogues on education and to tell you how the session will unfold. Robyn?
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Aziz. So welcome all. We are utterly thrilled to have you with us today. This Africa Voices dialogue series is really the realization of a dream that a number of us have had for quite a few months. It arose out of a session that was held at the 2020 ICSI conference, which was held in Morocco in January of this year. And we came up with an idea following an Africa Spotlight session in that conference to really find a way to connect our educators on this continent and to create a web of care, understanding, insight, hearing each other's voices and stories, validation of the African story, what is happening on the ground for educators, learners, families and communities in Africa. And doing that really between the people on this continent. So it is such a joy to see this vision realized and to have so many of you with us today. So today on the call as well, we have 2 people who we regard as really important to us, Mohammed El-Meski and Elabi Imad, who were conference organizers of the ICSI 2020 conference, and we regard them a little bit as the patrons of this dialogue series. So thrilled to have you with us. And perhaps I can just spend a little bit of time going through the format that we're going to use for these dialogues. So this really is envisaged not as a webinar, not as a conference. It's not for experts. We're not looking for big, important voices. We don't need to hear policymakers, etc. We really are, sorry. You would think when you put it on mute, it would stay on mute, but no. We're really looking for the citizens of this continent and the people who care about education on this continent. What we're hoping for over time is to bring the voices of our learners and children. It's a little bit tricky in terms of kind of legally how one is able to do that, but we really hope that via the educators, we will also start to hear the learners of our the voices of our young people. And so the conference, this session is going to be a little bit different from how, you know, many of you may have experienced webinars, the many webinars we are all experiencing to date. How we want to run it is really in something that's a time to think model. It's a time to think community building model, slightly adapted for the fact that we're in a virtual setting. And what we want to do is create a space for dialogue between our 6 dialogue participants, and for the remainder of us to create a holding space, a circle around them, where we can really listen into that dialogue, listen to what resonates for ourselves, listen to new things that are exciting, interesting, that offer us insights that we may not have had about the countries on our continent, because I'm sure you will all agree that the one thing about Africa as a continent is that we really are not well connected to one another. We don't have insight top to bottom, side to side. We don't know always who our neighbors and colleagues on the continent are. And so this is an opportunity for us to hear and to connect to them. And so if we can just bear in mind that as you're listening in, it's an active listening, you're holding space for the dialogue that's happening. Just to give you an idea, because I think it's extraordinarily powerful, who is on the call today? I'm sure we will have people continuing to join in, and there also will be people who may have registered but couldn't in the end make this call, but we know that their intent is with us, and so we regard them as being present. We have a massive representation from across Africa. It is just incredible to see the representativity from our continent, but also to see how much interest and care there is coming from other places in the globe who care about this conversation. It is an important conversation. Africa and the third world countries, those that have traditionally not been looked to for solutions, are increasingly being seen as the spaces where we may get some of our most innovative solutions around education, and particularly humanizing education from. And I just love these graphs. So this is a little bit of a kind of representation of the color of us, who is here from which country. And lastly, and I know this is because of a setting on the, because of a setting that it's an open setting, but really what we were hoping for was diversity on this call. Diverse people who have different interests, come from different spaces, different occupations, different affiliations. And I think what these 2 graphs show us is just this massive diversity. So the organization I come from is called Kaleidoscope Lights. And these 2 pie charts just bring joy to my heart because they are kaleidoscope lights. A little quick bit of housekeeping before we kick off. So please, we are on a Zoom Pro account, but we need, for those who are not speaking, to please keep their microphones on mute while you are not speaking, so that it doesn't disturb the conversation. We really want input and questions from the holding audience, those who are holding the space for the dialogue, for those in conversation. But we will create specific points for that to happen. And at that time, we would invite you to raise your hand on the little raise hand function, which you will see down on the bottom right-hand side of your Zoom call. If you go to participants, there will be an icon that comes up that says raise hand. Raise your hand or unmute yourself. It's just tougher to see people who are unmuted when there are kind of more than 100 participants. And otherwise post your questions in the chat group so that we can see them, find them, and welcome your voice in. I would suggest that you switch your video off during the dialogue, just so that we can focus on those who are speaking for that period. It also helps with bandwidth. So if you're battling with bandwidth, it's helpful to have your video off. And if you click on speaker view, which is up on the top right-hand side, there are a couple of little sort of blocks and squares and icons. You can click on speaker view, and that will just allow you to see in more detail the person that's speaking at the moment. In terms of chat function, we do want connection across the group, so please do feel free to chat to each other, but not in a way that's massively disruptive, if at all possible. So if you see somebody you want to say hi to, perhaps in a private chat to them. The chat group we'd like to retain for the period where we actually invite input. So if you have questions that come up that are really powerful during the conversation, bear them in mind, and when we ask for the questions to come up, post them on the chat group. We'll keep an eye out for them so that we can try and draw those in. We really, really would love your engagement, as much engagement as possible. Despite the fact that it's a virtual platform, what a virtual platform offers us is the ability to access all of you without the logistic nightmares, travel costs, etc. And please bring your full hearts and minds to the session today. And thank you so much for being with us. So that's me. I'm going to switch off the chair function and we will head into our conversation.
Robyn?
Yes.
Just a quick statement before you start maybe the conversation or the dialogue. We would like to thank all those who have contributed to the discussion on the preparation of the Africa Voices Dialogue series on education. We have to say that the dialogues were initiated by you and I, but of course we have had a few discussions and Zoom meetings with a number of people. Andrew is one of them. Thank you, Andrew. Daniel has also taken part of this, but of course, Mohammed and Al-Arabi, Mohammed Al-Miski and Al-Arabi Imad have also participated in the discussion during the preparation for this Africa Voices Dialogue series. So thank you so much for participating in creating this community and let's say thinking about this Africa Voices Dialogue series. We are so happy to have had you as members of the team, and you are always going to be members of the team. Everybody who is taking part today, who is participating, I'm talking to everyone. We have 70 people now with us, and people keep coming, which is interesting. So everybody is going to be a member of the Africa Voices Dialogue series because we are all Africa Voices. And as I said before at the beginning, even if you are not from the continent, Africa has become very, very important for everyone. And everybody is interested in what is going on in the African continent. So thank you very much to all of you. I also would like to state that we are so excited and enthusiastic about this Africa Voices Dialogue series. We are very ambitious. Robyn and I are so ambitious about the potential of this Africa Voices Dialogue series. And as I said, if you feel that you want to be in one of the series and you want to participate maybe and share your story with us and how you care for education and what you have been doing through building communities and so on and so forth, you're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Robyn, you can kick off the dialogue.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you so much, Sadiq and Amara. I couldn't agree with you more. I think my use of the term, it's such a tough thing, how one refers to our beautiful, rich, gorgeous countries that have for so long been not given the space that they deserve. So this was part of a kind of, it's a bone of contention in many spaces. How do we refer to ourselves? Because none of it is quite accurate. So thank you for that comment, both of you. So today we have 6 wonderful panelists who are from a very diverse group of countries across the continent. We've really looked to get a north-east, south, north-south and east-west central sense of participation. We will continue to really welcome in as many of our 54 countries on this continent as we can. And today we have with us Daniel Asua from Ghana, Tintin Mudrakiwa from Zimbabwe, Karima Kaduri from Morocco, Kosi Ntuli from South Africa, Andrew Wambua from Kenya, and David Kayombo from the DRC. And instead of my introducing them, I would like for them to introduce themselves. And so our first question, and how we will do this, is I will ask one of our panelists to please kick off and then to nominate one of the others to pick up. If we could take perhaps 2-3 minutes each just to introduce ourselves. And the question is, please do introduce yourself and share a little about your history and how you came to be in the role that you currently hold in the space that you currently are. So whoever would like to kick off, please do, and then nominate the next person in.
Yes, good evening all. My name is Andrew Wambua, and I am an educator, a researcher, and a thought leader. I am a Kenyan citizen and a doctoral candidate at the University of Heidelberg in Germany. My line of research is on leadership and collaborative professionalism in education, which of course resonates very well with what we are doing today. There is this Chinese saying which says that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And we have dared to take this single step of starting Africa Voices Education Dialogue Series. Today is just but a great day when we're launching this great event, and with an aim of bringing all African educators and students together. So I'm very, very much delighted, and I do understand that my fellow panelists and all the participants of this great event are as well delighted, just like me. I do welcome you all, feel at home, whether you come from Africa, whether you come from Europe, from the US, and from all over the world. We take this chance to welcome you all to this great event. I now take this chance to welcome Kosi Njuri to take over for me. Welcome, Kosi.
Thank you, Andrew, for your wonderful introduction. And I knew that you're gonna nominate me. I don't know why I knew that, but thank you so much. Speaking to you is Kosi Njuri. I am the principal at the school in Soweto. I am a South African citizen. I've been in the system for 19 years, out of which 8 years of those I've been a principal in the school that I'm currently working currently. It's been a wonderful journey for me. When I was given this opportunity, I remember when I started being a principal. I was a principal at a junior secondary school that was starting from grade 7 to grade 9, but an opportunity presented itself to me to lead a school that was underperforming. They had about 240 learners, and they were at 52% when I took over the school. So over the past 5 years, I was able to ensure that because I merged the school in 2015, so over the past 5 years, I was able to take the school to at some stage 96%. Currently, we are seated at 83%, and also ensure that we are having all the subjects that are bringing in change to the learners, your science subjects, your STEM subjects to the school. So for me, it's really a privilege to be in this space, because many of the things we work in silos, and in principles we should be working in collaborative with other people so that we can be able to learn from each other, so that we can then be able to bring change in the spaces where we live. Because remember, education is for everybody. And for me, I have a slogan to say it takes a village to raise a child, because we have to be able to collaborate. It is my duty as a principal to ensure that I see opportunities, I grab, I source resources for my learners, so that for them in the township, because sometimes people, when we say you come from Soweto, sometimes people, they think that you have it all together because we are from where Mandela comes from, but in principle it's not the case. So thank you so very much for having me here. I've been ahead in eager to be able to be part of this conversation, because really this is the space where we are able to share, knowing very well that we will be assisted. There is somebody who will be able to listen to us so that we can then be able to assist our children. I will then be able to nominate Tino Tendo, my participant in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, to be able to share his story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kosi. Just to make life easy for you, just say, you see, ladies and gentlemen, I am from Zimbabwe, a very colorful nation. Just Madam Moderator and Mr. Abdelaziz, if my band problems as I speak, kindly tell me so that I switch off my video and continue. Okay,
I think so. Please,
that's
Tintin,
all.
pop your video off just because the audio is not great with it on. Sorry, but nice to see you.
All right, how is the audio now? Perfect. In a nutshell, I am a development practitioner, a development studies student in the National University of Science and Technology, second capital city, mathematics tutor, focus vocational training, learning, towards the council plus or minus 20% pass rate, and that it affects most. So I am also a disabilities advocate. I'm happy to be on African Voices, because I met Robyn back in March, just before COVID, during the yearly education change makers, and to forward to now, we are now part of a collective of young people who want to advocate for better education for people in Africa. I'm going to nominate. Am I allowed to nominate Abdelaziz? No. Karema, yes, Karema. Can I nominate Karema?
Thank you very much. I am so delighted to be here, very honored and very humbled. Actually, I can see the 82 participants, and this is so wonderful, and so many different countries from our continent and beyond. So my name is Karima. It means generous, just so that. I have another name, which is Nargis, which means Narcissus. So I'm kind of trying to hold together a bit this tension between opposites. But I think life and the world is about being able to bring together in harmony some things that might seem opposite.
Karima, I'm sorry, I have muted everyone. I normally don't want to do this. I have muted everyone because I'm hearing noises, so you can unmute yourself right now. Great.
Okay. Did you hear what I said?
At the last statement, no. The last sentence, no. Okay. When you started talking about narcissists and
yes, so I was saying that this is I kind of holding together maybe opposites, but this is really what maybe life is about, bringing together things that might seem opposite, but bringing together things that in harmony. So I come from Morocco, from Tangier. The Tangier, depending on how you hold the map, is at the top of Africa. We can see Europe from Tangier, and we also have the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. And I wanted to tell you all this to get to the word ocean, because this is what I want to share. The ocean I'm in today, knowing that we are not a drop in the ocean, but we are an ocean in a drop, quoting Rumi, but also saying that that it is said that the ocean is a confluence of 1,000 rivers. And I might share very quickly a few of those rivers that led to this ocean today. So that that ocean is Temkin, is the institution I co-founded in 2009. It is a community foundation for human development and a social innovation platform. It was co-created here in Morocco with friends from different experiences and backgrounds. And we have the privilege and the humbling experience to have developed partnerships with neighborhoods, schools, universities, the education system as a whole, communities of art and culture, corporates, and research communities. So maybe just to start, something that holds very dear to my heart is, at 6 years old, I was told you cannot read. And the teacher that told me that, with that verdict, it stayed with me. It became a truth. And it took so many years for me to be able to trust another teacher, to be able to look in her mirror and to see that I can read, that I'm not doomed for failure, and believe that she actually trusted in me and in my capacity. So how many children in our continent have been told you cannot? How many today leaders and decision makers have been told that they cannot? How does that affect our continent? How can we together co-create spaces that we might call schools that transcend schools, that will allow for every single child in our continent to believe in his potential? So I've worked in the private sector as a consultant. I worked also in the government as an advisor to the Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, and in the social sector. I have met so many people, despite the responsibilities they had. You could deeply see, deep inside them, that someone told them you cannot. And that affects their relationship to the people they work with. And it affects the decisions that they take for their companies, for their communities, for their countries. And I thank you very much. And I shall nominate, on that note, Andrew? No, Andrew was started with Andrew, sorry. Who do I nominate?
David?
David, thank you. Thank you.
David, you have to unmute yourself. Great. Unmute yourself one more time. Yeah, great. You can
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name's David Caymbo. I'm a DRC citizen based in the Congo. I have been fortunate to work in 3 critical sectors: the non-profit sector, the private sector, and very recently, the public sector, to promote sustainable development, but with a particular focus on improving accessibility to education and enhancing human capital. In 2014, my wife and I founded a school called Le Potier. In English, you'd say the porter. Now, the name of the school is quite suggestive. As you know, a porter works with clay, giving different shapes to clay. We do believe that intellectual abilities, attitude, skills can be influenced in the same way that a porter shapes clay. Le Potier offers kindergarten and primary education programs in the community where we live. Why do we take a particular interest in education? You would know that Congo is a country that is endowed with vast mineral resources. But the reality is that Congo ranks as one of the poorest countries in the world. And we think one chief reason is that our level of investment in education or human capital is very low. So at the porter, we try to reverse that trend by offering children quality education, but that is also value-based. So I'm very delighted to be part of this community of people who also have got an interest in education, so that we can exchange the different experiences we have. Right. So with this said, I don't know if I'm the last person to speak, but I see that I can nominate Daniel from Ghana.
Daniel is unfortunately not on the call yet. We're just trying to communicate with each other.
Okay.
So he's not yet on the call, which is a pity. He's from Ghana, and an amazing young man. He did have his first child's christening today. So he had a beautiful newborn baby arrive about 10 days ago, and it was the christening today. So I'm suspecting that perhaps the celebrations are ongoing. But if he is able to join us later, he has been trying to call me. If he's able to join us later, we will look forward to having him. If he isn't, then when we get to the end of our session, I'll explain how we want to run the series going forward. And the hope would be that he would be joining us in any case for the next session. So let's hope he can join us. And if he can't, we'll continue with the 5 of us, or the 5 of you at least. So over to you, Aziz. Would you like to pose the first question of the session today?
Thank you, Robyn. Of course, so we would like Daniel to be able to join us later, and we're going to do our best to get in touch with him because he also has an interesting story to share. And we know that he has had a great impact in the African continent as a young educator and a young entrepreneur who has contributed so much to the development of young people in Africa. You know, it's very interesting to hear stories from the 5 of you, the 5 people we have invited in this session. They have a lot to say, and maybe along the way, as we unfold some questions, or some questions are posed, we are going to learn a lot from them. The one question we would like you to answer is, what do you believe the role of education is for African youth? And are we making adequate progress towards achieving this? If you have heard the question, that's fine. If you want me to repeat it, I can repeat it.
And whoever has something they would like to say, pop your hand up,
anybody?
the 5 of you.
Yes.
The first person can just start, and then after, please pop your hand up. And Kosi, thank you.
Thank you, Aziz. For me, particularly in South Africa, I believe the youth has got the responsibility to improve themselves so that they can escape the poverty. They need to take all the opportunities available for themselves to educate themselves so that they can change their lives. We all know that the only weapon that we have is through education. So, especially where I work.
Kosi, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you said especially where you work.
Yes, especially where I work in the township. Poverty is so real. Dysfunctionality, it is so real. The only thing that the youth has is the responsibility for them to escape this is through education. So as a principal in the township, I have to ensure that I am able to assist them by trying all means to influence, motivate, source resources for them so that they can then be able to. But now, my challenge that I'm seeing is, are we able to do that in the education space? Because remember, there are so many things that are affecting the teaching and learning inside the school. So as learners are trying and ensuring that they are getting this education, they are changing their lives, they are so much faced with so many social ills, they are so much faced with so many disruptions in the community that are happening. Sometimes we're currently having the issue of ESCOM and load shedding. Sometimes when they are during studies, they can't be able to access that. So it's a call for everyone in the education space to say, what is it that we can be able to do to ensure that we are able to give? Because currently during the COVID, some of the learners were able to access education, especially the town schools. But our learners in the township could not be able to because of the connectivity issues in the township. They are unable to separate themselves using the data that they have, the data for the connectivity, for their personal things, and for the schoolwork. We couldn't be able to, even if we're trying, but in terms of the number of learners that we are able to access for them to be able to get the education that we want to give, we couldn't. So it is now the time that we need to be able to see the opportunity that was especially brought by this pandemic in our system, to say, what is it that we can be able to do to ensure that we are now bringing in things and resources that can be able to capacitate the learners, especially in the township, for them to also access education, even if in the time of crisis. So that is what I think they have the responsibility, but also the education and the government also have got a lot to do in ensuring that we are able to cover that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Kosi, for this intervention, and it's also open to the others, Karima, Andrew, and David, and Tintin, to just have a say on the question of what the role of education is for African youth, and are we making adequate progress towards achieving this?
I can go on that. I will actually, I really like what you said, Kosi, about the responsibility. I would say that it breaks my heart when we hear and when we see and when we are told that education is to find a job, to prepare our young people to find a job, is such a narrow perception about what education is. It also tells us a lot about how we see these young people. So this worldview about you have worth if you have a job, is what going to let us leave us in this continent in the eddies of development models that are dying off today in the Western world. So what we really need to do is to understand, and it goes back to, if they can take the responsibility, that means we trust that they have that potential. So it's about, first, how do we see another human being? So it goes back to, how do I see myself? Is my value as a human being what I know, what I possess, or my value as a human being is who I am? What is my sense of self? The education system starts with that, with a deeply philosophical question about recognizing the intrinsic value of a human being. By that, we can start by humanizing our schools. And by having schools that reflect what harmonious societies can look like. Education role is to nourish, to water the potential. The potential is there. How do we nourish it? How do we water it in order for that potential to be able to express itself? For the young people to say, oh, I did not know I could think like that. I did not know I was like that, but it was there. So how do we just nourish that and water that? And how do we learn as schools to co-create the conditions like a gardener would do? But not a gardener. The gardener, and the wisdom of gardening is that we understand that the whole garden contributes to this process. Everyone is contributing to that process. So everyone is learning in that process. So it is really an invitation and a welcoming to a lifelong process of inquiry, a lifelong process of learning and of understanding. And then I'll go back to another quote that I hold very dear to my heart, which is, we learn by reading, yes, but we understand with love. And that means that is something that I need to experience, that a school is a space of experience, that it's not only about reading, about knowing, but it's about understanding. It's about feeling that deep human connection. So this is what I see as a role of our schools. The moment we humanize our schools, then we might see emerging an ecosystem of a societal harmony.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Kosi and Karima, for such a wonderful contributions. I'll go back to one of the quotes, which one of the greatest scholars of all times, John Dewey, said. He said that education is not preparation for life, but education is life itself. Of course, when we talk about that, we have always time and again, we have been taught that we are preparing the youth to take job opportunities in the future. We should not actually focus so much on the youth. We should prepare them to see the current challenges which are facing humankind. And because it's only through seeing these challenges that they can be compelled, they can be forced to come up with solutions to these challenges. And that is where the role of education comes in. Of course, we can say the role of education for the youth is to nurture their full potential, that is helping them to acquire the global competencies. And when I talk about these global competencies, I'm talking about the 21st century skills. That is the 6 C's, which are character, citizenship, creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. And talking about character, I'm talking about, can these students learn on themselves? Can they unlearn and can they relearn? Citizenship, they should be in a position to have a global kind of a mind, not just having that village kind of a thinking. It's good to have that kind of a local thinking. But again, time has come for our students to have a global kind of mind. And talking about creativity, our students should take the opportunity and develop the entrepreneurial eye of socio-economic opportunities around them. And talking about communication, our students should be in a position to communicate precisely to different audiences, because through communication they can be understood and they can understand other parties and they can also understand the challenges facing the world. How about collaboration? Talking about collaboration, there's this saying which says that no one is perfect, but a team can be. So through teamwork and collaboration, then students know how to enable, how to develop networks, and now finally critical thinking. Now these global competencies, that is character, citizenship, creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, will help our youth identify the current challenges which are facing humankind. That is the global warming, that is the food insecurity, conflicts, among many other challenges. Of course, we are talking about global warming as the greatest threat facing humankind, as of course well written by David Wells through one of his very famous books called The Uninhabitable Earth. So our youth need to have these skills, because we are living in very diverse times. We are living in a very dynamic world. We are living in a world whereby if we don't address the challenge of food security, then we are in trouble. If we don't address the challenge of conflicts, which are very in our continent, then you are in trouble. Global warming, again. Hello?
Yeah, Andrew, thank you. We've had some difficulty listening, hearing you. So, have you finished?
Yeah. So what I'm saying, if we address these challenges which are facing humankind, then we'll have gone no peace. So we need our youth to develop the global skills, because by developing the global skills, they'll be in a position to identify the current challenges facing humankind. These current challenges are global warming, food insecurity, conflicts. Something which we have to agree is there is no way we can think about global warming if we have no food on the table. So we must bring food on the table. There's no way to eat on the table. So we have to identify these problems which are facing humankind. And now, once we identify the challenges, we also identify the nature of these solutions. Then the other question is, are we making progress? I would say yes, we are making progress, but still, much needs to be done. And as to why we are making, one of the reasons as to why we are making a slow progress, because teaching and learning, conventional methodology is very common in our classrooms. Conventional teaching methodology does not make our students develop the global competencies. What it promotes rote learning. And when I talk about conventional, a situation whereby the teacher comes to the class, teaching as the authority.
Andrew?
Yes?
There is some noise in the voice that we hear from you. If you can use your earphones, or I think it'll be better if you have them.
Yeah, so let me see if I can use the earphones. Yes, you're hearing me now?
Yeah. I think perhaps...
so
Robyn?
I'm just saying perhaps we can close off and move.
So what I'm saying is that we are making progress, but this progress is not that much. We need to move away from conventional kind of teaching to a progressive kind of a teaching, which is more of a student-centered learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Chin, are you still here with us?
I had a bit of a challenge as well.
Yes.
So, let me just check. I want to comment on the role of education in African youth, right? Specific country, we're having that has masters that are on the doctor, but these youth are.
I think there is a little problem with your connection. Maybe that's why we can't hear you very well.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, but you get cut. Yes.
Okay, let me just try. Yes, I wanted to bring in two things quickly. With us, we have a lot of youth who have a professional qualification, but do not have the sort of industrial exposure. They sit at home with their degrees on the wall, but don't have something to say, with my degree, with my master's, my doctorate, I have attained one, two. Youth want to ignore politics and leave elder people. So we want the role of education to dictate, or rather to teach youths why it is.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Tintin, because it sounds so brilliant what you're saying, but it's really coming and going. So we'll wait for a little, and perhaps David, if you would like to share your thoughts, and then let's try Tintin again after. So David, you're up.
Okay, in terms of the role of education for the African youth, I would say that there's no way that Africa's youth can be competitive if we don't place a premium on education. I've been fortunate to study overseas, and you would see in different universities the number of students from Asian countries, for example, on national scholarships in different fields, medicine, education, engineering. You find here and there in African students, not in the same numbers. So that tells us a lot in terms of how we value education at the continent level. But to talk about the DRC, I don't have this year's data, but for the past 2 years, our education sector was grossly underfunded, with barely 1.6% of our annual budget being earmarked for education, 1.6% only earmarked for education. The bulk of that money covered teachers' salaries and administration costs. So in real terms, close to 0.3% of our annual budget was earmarked for education, for investment in education, real investment in terms of teachers training, the kind of soft activities that can go into the education sector to improve access and accessibility to quality education. So with these figures, I think what I can say is that if different countries of Africa could be pitched on the map, we'd have a different picture. Some would be ahead, some would be lagging behind. But I think overall, as a continent, there's a lot that has to be done to enhance education. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. I see Tintin seems to have fallen off the call, and I'm sure it sounded like his bandwidth was really poor and the connection was poor. So let's hope that when he rejoins, the connection is better. So thank you so much for all of those insights. Really, really very interesting, and a big focus on humanization of education, really taking the opportunity we have now to reimagine our education systems as being in service of our youth and not our youth as being in service of our systems. So on to our second question, and what we want to do is we kind of want to look at some of the issues, and then we want to look at some of the possibilities. So the second question is for you for now. What have some of your greatest frustrations and pain points been over the course of your career in the space of education? And this can include, but it's not exclusively COVID. I think we're all COVIDed out, and I think we have enough to talk about on this continent to talk beyond that. So really looking at your career, the scope of your career and your experiences, what are some of your greatest frustrations and pain points? And again, please, those who want to speak, just pop your hand up on the screen or on the chat box. And let's start and move through you.
Hey, Robyn.
Thanks, Karima. Hi, Tintin. Tintin, thank you. So your connection is much better. So if I can ask your grace, everybody, I was very interested in what Tintin was saying to the earlier question. Can we try hear your input on that question, and then we'll come back to the second question. Thanks, Tintin. Over to you.
Thank you so much. So I think what I was saying in the previous question connects with what you're saying now. Greatest frustrations in the area, in the space that we are in the education sector versus the role of education in Africa. I was saying, if my country has 90% plus literacy rate, in other words, almost everybody can read and write, but guess almost everybody is poor and is failing to get a good bandwidth to be able to join our conversation. So it is a big frustration in that young people are really pushing for having the paper, from having the certificate, and ignoring the fundamentals and the foundations that affect each and every other thing that we do, that is politics. So if an 18-year-old up to a 35-year-old person stands in a classroom full of people and says, I've never voted in my life, who do they expect to come and make a change or a difference in an Africa that recently got its independence? Now, I'm trying to be holistic. If you go to, talking about Southern Africa, you are neighboring South Africans, the majority of youth will tell you the same issue, employment, the same issue of having qualifications and being forced to now do stuff that you did not train for. And we're having a lot of youths who have the wrong qualifications, in that maybe they're going to be trained as educators or as teachers, and yet their passion is in drama and performing arts. So what is happening with our people who are responsible to empower youth for long-term goals, number one? Then two, do we have an emotional intelligence that understands that when you are in a crisis, you don't go and beat up your wife, you don't go and beat up your kids? Let's talk about emotional intelligence. There is the role of African education applying emotional intelligence to our youths. We have youths who have degrees and second degrees and doctorates. They go back home, they beat up their sisters, they beat up their wives, they beat up their kids. Number three, youth that is financially intelligent, they can get a job in the Microsoft of this world, and they get a proper job in the big international companies of this world. But they have to decide, they go back and blow it on alcohol, go back, blow it on something, a car that is luxurious, and then that person doesn't even have a stand, for instance, to build their house in the future. So the frustration now comes into say, youth are 60% of people in Africa, and yet they are not emotionally intelligent, and yet they are not financially intelligent. Let me stop here for now. I hope I was clear.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you. So just a reminder to everybody, could you please mute yourselves? And also, I think just to preserve our bandwidth, please just pop your videos off if you are listening in, you're in the holding group. Great. Thank you, Tintin. I'm so glad that connection was much better. We could hear you well. All right, so then back to our second question. What have some of your greatest frustrations and pain points been over the course of your career in the education space? Karima was going to start.
Thank you, Robyn. What I might start by saying is that grief is never too far from gratefulness and gratitude. So it's really about learning, getting to get grief and gratitude holding hands. So sometimes those pains, when we learn to see things with different eyes, we can turn situations into joy and hope. And this is pretty much what we have experienced. So I might start with this experience. We were invited to take part in a teacher training curriculum at the university in Tétouan, in the l'École Normale Supérieure of Mektil. And I remember my first session with the students, future teachers to be, asking them, why are you here? And they looked at each other and looked at me and said, well, we did not know what to do else. In Arabic, tarjt al-khubz. We need to feed ourselves. We need to feed our families. We were not able, today I have a master's, I have a bachelor's, some had doctorates, but I could not find a job. I cannot go back to my village, so I prefer to continue my studies. They will laugh at me. There was so much despair, so much pain. But yet, I was able to see these young people tell me at the end of the year, Professor, we promise you, wherever we go, never to let, because you have woken up the child that died in us. We promise you, wherever we go, we will never let the child in our students die. We started hearing them say, we want to contribute to our society, and we can do it. We heard them talk about love, and suddenly understand that their value was not how much money they were going to make, but their value was just the fact that they're human beings. And when they were able to see themselves like that, they could only see potential in their students. I can also tell you that one of my greatest pains is to see how the education system in Morocco, and I bet that in most of countries in Africa, are invaded by experts, by consultants, by international organizations who know. It's all in good faith maybe, but the expertise is not there. We cannot copy a model from one school to another. There are different ecosystems, let alone from one country to another. It just doesn't work like that. And when the education system, leadership members today tell us we have been able to find the key to find our own solutions. The solutions are within the system. When the education system itself is able to see its potential, that the solutions are there, we need to co-create them, then everything changes. So these pains that are still lingering, but we have seen and we have witnessed how they became hope. And today we are hearing people at all levels of the education system in Morocco talking about humanizing the education system. We have a lot of hope. And thank you.
Thank you, Karima.
You know, I really wanted to intervene very quickly to say that we know that you are the five of you, and of course many who have joined us here. You're not ordinary educators, or you're not ordinarily involved in education. We've kind of, as I always tell my friends when I have meetings with them, I have Googled you, you know, I have spied on you, somehow read what you have been doing. And that's why we have chosen, Robyn and I have chosen some of the questions here. We know that you can share a lot with everyone here. And because one of the reasons why we have started this Africa Voices series on education is not just to bring people to talk about the education and goodbye, that's it. We want to really create, and I said it started with us, but you need to be involved in this. Everyone here needs to be involved and more. I mean, those who are present and those who are not, I know that there are a lot of people who can build, we can build a community in Africa. We can share things, we can at least raise awareness about a number of issues, and that's why I love what we've been doing just now. So we go on with the same question. Robyn, sorry, maybe I have interrupted you, but I had to say what I had to say. We go on with the same question. I don't know if the others want to intervene and just say a few things about the greatest frustrations and pain points that they have been through during the course of their careers.
Fantastic, thank you. So yes, I see Kosi wants to talk, and I see we have two participants that are desperate to speak. So we're going to hear from our panelists, and then we're going to open up for five participants to speak in person, and also please pop in the chat group, because you know, good questions should be personal, anxiety provoking, and unavoidable, and this is one of those questions, so that's why it's asked. Kosi.
Yeah, thank you, Robyn. Actually, for me, the first one that I wanted to share, which was actually one of my biggest frustration when I started and emerging at a high school, was that I am a female. So many of the time, you find that people, they expect a male principal, big one for that matter, that are leading those institutions. So for me, those are some of the things, because sometimes people, they were asking for a principal when you are outside, because they couldn't believe that you being a principal young, because they expecting somebody who's older, a person who has got, I don't know for them, because everything was running smooth. And when they come to the office, they find you in the office, they will be able to ask questions. Oh, wow, we were expecting somebody who is big, somebody who is a male in this space, because being a principal in especially in the high school, there is a male dominant space. So for me, that was one other frustration. But another frustration that I'm having being a principal also is the interference of external factors. that are affecting us in the education space, especially the politics, student body movement, educator unions, where when everything is okay and when people just feel that they don't want to go to class, they will just come in and be able to interrupt. Learners body movement will just come in and take out the learners from the classroom, saying that learners, they have to go in, there's a rally or there's something that is happening somewhere. And remember, they only take out the learners from the township. Those learners that are in the town schools, they are not much affected. And the gap that is always created is too much. We are widening the gap already that is there of inequality. So when you're asking them to say, but you know, learners, if you have to have this thing, why aren't you calling in your student body to address them and be able to have a way? They would be saying, no, there is no teaching. So sometimes when you have gained the momentum, while you are still trying to push, and then there are those external factors that will always be created and causing fear and instability in the school. Educator movement, when learners, obviously, when teachers are going in for a march, you have to take out to the school. These are things that becomes a thing that you don't have any control over, and they are really frustrating the system. And the third one is the issue of currently we're having a majority of the educators coming into the system. Majority of them, they have studied for something else, but they don't find the job. Then they deviate, and then they do this 1 year to convert so that they become the teachers. And one problem that I saw was a contributory factor, though this is not researched, but it's one of the contributing factors in the issue of learners fighting the teachers, because you find that these educators, they don't do methods like we normally do them for 3 years. They come in for 1 year. After that, they convert their degree, then they become the teachers. It really creates the frustration, because those teachers are not there because of the calling, but they are there because they have to collect, they have to have the job at the end of the day so that they can be having money to feed their families. And in that, it creates a problem for us when we are building, because education, it's really a calling. For a teacher to come in and stand in front of the children, you're not only teaching the learners, but you are transforming. There is a lot that is involved. And those educators, sometimes they are not taught all those things that they are expected. And remember now with PL1 educators coming into the system, sometimes you having to interview and do all those things, the time is not limited. And remember, as principals, we don't have also the leeway to fire and hire as we please. Sometimes the interference, as I'm indicating, of educator union, you'll be told to say, these are the teachers. And sometimes those are the things that are contributing to the failures in our system. And it really frustrates us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Kosi. David and then Andrew.
Okay. I think one of the merits of such a platform is to hear stories, from different places. When I heard the story from Karima on the value of education, on the value of expertise, in fact, African expertise, I would say, as far as Congo is concerned, expertise is exactly the problem. Finding talented teachers. When we founded our school, we thought the biggest challenge that we'd face would be securing funding so that we can build, nice schools and classrooms. But we're shocked to discover that there's a huge deficit in terms of finding qualified, teachers. With regard to the DRC, throughout the 70s and 80s, teacher training colleges benefited from support from international donors, both in terms of funding and teacher exchange programs. But years of misrule has brought everything to its knees, including the education sector. So unqualified teachers produce weak students. So it produces systemic, in fact, consequences. And education being so key and critical, you can understand why we face problems in almost all spheres of society. Going back to my story of founding the school, we decided to recruit teachers, and we got support from the Catholic Church to be on the panel. We got many application letters, and when we ran the tests, we quickly realized that the best candidates barely made it above 50%. And the expert from the Catholic Church said, you know, you can compromise because 50% is already good. But my response was this. I said, okay, let me give you an example. If you board a flight and you are told that 2 flights out of 10 that this pilot makes end up in a crash, 2 out of 10, which is 80%, would you board such a flight? They said, no, we will not. I said, okay, another example. If you are told that this neurosurgeon, 2 operations out of 10 that he performs or she performs cause death, would you trust them enough and put your head into their hands? They said no. So I said, so if we are so demanding as far as these other fields are concerned, why are we relaxed in terms of education? Because it's the teachers that would train pilots. It's the teacher that would train medical doctors. So we even have to be more demanding in terms of attracting qualified teachers, trainers. So you can understand that because our education system is so weak, it's many aspects of our society that are affected as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, David. Andrew, if you could just keep it briefish because we wanted to have some voices from participants and we still want to get to one more question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robyn. I have 4 problems and all 4 challenges which I have faced as an educator. And one of them is individualism, which is more common in our teaching and learning as opposed to team teaching and learning. And these has yielded competition, hence rote learning. The teacher gets into the classroom, closes the door, lectures his or her students, and then leaves. And of course, if this persists over time, when will our learners be creators of knowledge? As our students seem to be receivers of knowledge as opposed to creators of knowledge. And of course, as per the research, we can say that the solution to this lies on the privatization of our education system. The second one is on galloping inequity in our education system. With the marginalized areas poorly resourced. Of course, this was very apparent during the pandemic, that is COVID-19, since March up to now. The marginalized students, of course, are the worst hit, where they cannot and could not afford the digital tools, the Wi-Fi, and if they have both, sometimes they don't know how to use them. The third part, or the third challenge, is that teaching and learning is not guided by research, is not guided by evidence. And because of this, we have seen traditional teaching methods which have persisted for decades, since colonial times. And now the fourth one is on curriculum. Curriculum should be there to address the challenges of the society. But is this the case? We have got so many challenges in our society, very practical one. The students should be in a position to relate theory and practice. So unless we have a relevant curriculum, then we are out of touch. So our curriculum needs to address the needs of the society right away from our universities, which will be replicated in our classrooms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. So we have two, we're going to go over for a little while so that you can have an opportunity to have your voices heard. We're going to make a space for 5 comments from our holding audience, but please, we would love your comments in the chat group. It is very, very interesting what's coming through here. So, Maya Min, if you would like to, you've been holding on, if you would like to unmute.
Okay, thank you, Robyn. Thank you for this beautiful platform. I don't know if you can hear me or not. It's very hard to get internet here in the Isle of Wight. Brilliant. I totally understand the frustration that is going on in Africa and the teachers in Africa, because I'm going through the same frustration in teaching in Iraq and teaching after 2003. And then after 2014 with what happened in Mosul. We had, like every colleague has spoken before, we had interference from different aspects, different interference from outside, which came from the Americans and the British. They brought their own curriculum. And this was a push that Iraqis had to teach this new curriculum. Without understanding that the culture, that the Iraqi culture is different to the white British culture or the American culture. There was a different religion, different aspects. Another thing that we had to change was to make it more adaptable to the culture itself and the religion, which is a lot of us are Muslims in Iraq. Another thing that we saw in Iraq, that the children needed a voice, like you see in the UK where I teach. From the age of the year 1, we teach them to give them a voice, and that's the lack we have. And I can see that it's the same thing happening in Africa in schools. Because I teach a train in the UK, we train the teachers in PGCE or on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. We gather all the teachers in different schools, and then we train them on giving students a voice, giving them, like the gentleman that said before, Karima, who said that they don't know how to vote when they become adults. Again, we didn't have that in 2003, but something that I adapted from the schools here in the UK. Through play role from year 1, we taught our children how to vote and what does voting mean and what does becoming a citizen and valuing our culture and valuing our identity as well as Iraqis. So that's something that I have teacher trained my Iraqi colleagues in schools in Iraq. I love the way that Jose was saying about, Jose, I'm sorry if I said the name wrong, I'm really sorry, who is a head teacher, telling them that every time there is parts of education, and again, there is interruptions. Like we have now in Iraq, we were interrupted through wars, from one thing to another. But what we tried to, when we came back to after 2017, when ISIS left us, we started to have a culture of the school. So we started telling the teachers and the parents, listen, we need the children to come into schools, and the teachers at the school, the children are from 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock. There is, you're not allowed to interfere in anything. You're not allowed to think about going out for rallies or anything like that. It's education time. After 3 o'clock, you can do whatever you want. They're your children. So we started to have that as a campaign in the school. We started to give out this papers, leaflets, telling the children, telling the mothers and fathers, the culture, anybody who works in Iraq, in the government, telling them now it's education time, the children, it's learning time, to be more precise. Karima, I loved what you said about educators, and I believe that you have to, as educators, we have to value education. If I go into the classroom and I huff and I puff in front of my students saying that education does not feed me, education doesn't do anything, the children will take a negative aspect from this me huffing and puffing and saying education is not good. We need to educate our teachers by telling them education is very important, and this has to be something that is in our ethos, in our aim of the school, and in the culture of the school, telling them that education is important, especially in Africa and the Middle East. If we don't have education, that means we don't have money, we don't have food. Education doesn't mean only being teachers, but when you're educated, you can go open your own business. When you're well educated, you can go to university. You can be whatever you want with that career in your hand. So that is something that we need to value and make others understand this. Thank you.
Robyn?
Thank you, Mariamin. That is, yes, Abdelaziz?
Just one comment. I think that's by giving the voice to May in UK, and she's from Iraq originally. I think you have realized one of our dreams, that to say Africa Voices is not limited to Africans. And I know that you haven't chosen her on purpose, but that's a wonderful choice that you've made, Robyn. So it seems that the problems of education resonates everywhere, of course, with different degrees and levels. And I would like to thank everyone who has joined us, people who are from other continents and have joined us. We have Dr. Khalid Arar with us. Welcome, Khalid. Everybody who has joined us. It's a wonderful thing to have all of you. Yes, Robyn, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to concur in May. I think what's quite powerful in hearing that voice is I think how much resonance there is with many countries in Africa that have had this constant series of wars, civil unrest, etc., and that is terribly, terribly disruptive to what we're able to offer our youth. So very interesting paradigm comparison. Thank you. That was valuable. Timosa, we'd love to hear from you. We've got 30 minutes after that, so we're going to ask a second question and maybe have a brief time for just a little bit more engagement, and then we'll introduce you to what we're hoping for the future. So Timosa, over to you.
Thank you. I am not from Africa. I actually am a Black woman in the United States, having worked in education for over 25 years. And while I can't say that I can speak to the challenges specifically that exist on the continent, I'd be curious to hear how these statements resonate. First, as everyone is aware, there's incredible social unrest happening in the United States right now related to race. And one of the frustrations that I think this unrest is elevating globally is the challenge that African Americans have historically dealt with in the United States. And this is prevalent in the education system. The system was designed based on principles of oppression. And we know that bureaucracies are designed for self-sustaining and status quo thinking. So part of my personal frustration is working within organizations and systems that are not designed for innovation. So, and the fallout and the impact that it has disproportionately on people of color, particularly Black young people in this country. The other thing that I would say is a frustration that I have is around how bureaucracies work. The siloing that happens, the fact that there's within agencies a lack of communication and collaboration and the ability to operate from a uniform set of norms and beliefs that are really grounded in what we're ultimately trying to achieve for students. So much focus on accountability, not enough focus on children. So I just wanted to name those two things as something that feels particularly resonant for me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Timosa. And yeah, I think a really tough place to be a female African educator who cares about quality education right at the moment. So we will all hold hands, all hold thumbs for Senator Harris, that we can just overcome this slight, well, it's not really aberrant, sadly, but yeah, we'll just hold thumbs, fingers and toes. Fantastic. So, Abdelmajid, it would be great to hear from you. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to cut it there because our time is just creeping away with us.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Abdelmajid Bouziane, Professor of Education from Morocco. And I would just like to share with you some of the, because Aziz asked the question at the beginning, whether we are there or not yet. And I want just to answer that question to say, we're not there yet because of these reasons. We still have a kind of, we should strike gender balance because men have better education or more education in the African countries than women, bearing in mind that if we don't educate women, we're not going to have a kind of balanced society. The other major hurdle in our education is inclusive education. We still have some bad treatments of the disabled people. And in some countries, they don't even have a place in schools. And that is very frustrating. Another thing is we never give the opportunity to the children to get involved in decision-making in their schools as students. How would you like them to vote when they are adults? Because they have never undergone a kind of democratic experience in their schools as students. Some of the things that we need to do is we need decentering our education systems because we still follow the colonizers. Just as you know, Africa, many African countries have been colonized and we still cling to the education systems of our colonizers. We still have the same arrangements. We still favor maths, we still favor technology, we still favor, in our prestigious schools, we favor some of the subjects that perhaps are not going to make us grow as African countries because we have different needs, and therefore we should cater for our children's needs better than following the Western systems of education. To get there, we need a lot of work. A lot of work in terms of more teacher training and the updating of curricula, and particularly orienting the curricula to our particular needs. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. So just before I hand over to Abdelaziz, I just wanted to say, you know, it is just such a well-known fact that educating young women or young girls is one of the single best return on investments that one can make in terms of the knock-on ramifications of what happens when young women are educated, even just to grade 4 level, so just to literacy level, but obviously beyond that is what we're aiming for. Abdelaziz is going to pose our final question to our panelists. We had 7 questions, so just so that you are aware, this conversation has been rich, beautiful, wonderful, and I am hoping that you all agree with us, very much in need of continuation. We really were hoping to look all the examples of innovation that you've come across, etc. And so we would like to keep that for one of our future sessions, really looking for where are the solutions, because our continent, and having been exposed to so many of the most amazing educators on this continent, I can tell you we have solutions coming out of our ears. It is terribly exciting, and we want to hear about those because they are less visible than they should be. So, Abdelaziz, if I can hand over to you now.
Yes. Well, first, let me tell you that I can feel that this is the beginning, not the end. I mean, this meeting today is the beginning, really the beginning. There is a lot to say, there is a lot to share. And let me just reiterate, this is a platform for everyone. It's Africa Voices, but it's a voice for everyone. So everyone is invited to just get in touch with us for future sessions if you have things that can help us move forward in terms of education. You asked a question, Robyn, you said, where are the solutions? So I'm going to drop the HERE and keep just the WE. We are the solutions. You know, I know that a lot of people are frustrated with bureaucracies, policies, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go into this, otherwise we're not going to finish in half an hour. But we are the solutions. If we build communities around Africa, we build communities with people around the world, and we try to at least share and do what we can do and work on our agency, I think we can achieve a lot. So our next question, because this platform doesn't want to focus only on the problems and the frustrations, but what are some opportunities? So the question first to our panelists, and then everybody can share answers later. So what are opportunities that you see ahead for young people? What are the opportunities that you see ahead for young people who are willing and eager to impact on their communities? What are the opportunities that they have to seize, that these young people have to seize so as to impact their communities when it comes to education, of course?
David, please unmute and you can start.
Did you want me to speak? Okay.
Oh, I think your hand was up, but maybe it was from previously. So if it was up from previously, that's fine. Whoever else wants to start, though.
Okay, no, that's good. In terms of opportunities that I see for young people, I would say one of the benefits of the sort of COVID crisis is that there's been a surge in putting in place platforms that provide internet-based lessons. Congo, just like many other countries, went through a period of lockdown. And as far as our school, for example, is concerned, we had to produce education materials for our students. But what I've seen is that increasingly young people would come together and offer different solutions to overcome the consequences of COVID by providing easy to use internet-based platforms. So my hope is that as we go beyond, the post-COVID period, that we should not lose the momentum and continue to be creative in seizing opportunities and being more creative, more innovative to find better solutions. I think these internet-based solutions are also low cost. We are used to having in-person presence of students, in classrooms. But for the first time, we realized that, in fact, you can provide quality education without having a student physically in a classroom. So that's an opportunity that I see.
Thank you, David. Maybe Andrew? Andrew?
Thank you so much, Abdelaziz. I have 3 points to make, and I'll start with the first one. The African Voices Education Dialogue series, of course, it will unlock the enormous potential in both educators as well as students as we endeavor to build communities of educators which will serve as a reference point. The second point I have is that the fact that Africa's biggest population is the youngest in the world, and actually we can authoritatively say that Africa is the youngest continent in the world, gives us a lot of hope that Africa has a future. The human resource to nurture is very huge, and we as educators have a lot of role to play, and I am happy actually that we are equal to the task, as we are already showing in this forum, that we are all united to nurture every learner's potential so that they may develop the global competencies so that they may develop these global competencies and also identify the challenges and their solutions. And the third point I have to make is that the interactions from this forum will create a knowledge hub which will serve as a reference point by both teachers and students, hence strengthen the learning cultures across board. They say that a culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and strengthening the culture of learning will serve the purpose. That is, the teacher will feel empowered. There will be continuous learning by both educators and learners, and in the process, their skills will be upskilled, and the focus will be on the student. That is, teaching and learning will be student-centered. And through all this, collaboration will be deepened, and all this will lead to a strong culture of learning. Thank you, and back to you, Abdelaziz.
Thank you, Andrew. Tintin, I think you want to say something about the opportunities that lay ahead for youngsters in Africa.
Yes, thank you, Abdelaziz. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
All right. Can you kindly share a small video clip before I talk about opportunities that lie ahead?
Perhaps, Tintin, you could start talking unless the video is prerequisite. Oh, there we go.
Perfect. I just want you guys to have a picture of what is happening on the ground on a lot of parts, rural parts in Zimbabwe. All right, thank you, Abdelaziz. You can kindly stop it now.
Yes, Tintin, what did you say?
All right, I was saying thank you. Can you kindly stop the video?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Here?
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So can I continue now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Thank you for playing that video for me. What opportunities lie ahead when we have a rural Africa that is now learning via a small radio? What sort of innovations are we going to come up with as an Africa? In my country, schools are opening on the 14th of September. And I tend to worry for the 60% plus populace in the rural areas who are supposed to now learn via radio. And they got around that small radio. They are expected to sit. They're expected to sit for exams. So opportunities should be in the tech world. Opportunities are there for youthful people in Morocco, in Iraq, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe to exchange on how best to mitigate these issues instead of pointing fingers to governments, instead of pointing fingers to other people. As an African voice platform and participants, fill in the gap to stand in for persons with disabilities, for the girl child in rural spaces, for those places that are not going to have internet for the next 12 to 18 months. What are we then going to do as youthful people exposed to the IR world? So it is just my parting shot, in other words, to say, let it be a challenge to everybody on this platform to say, something must be done, should be done for the rural learner in war-torn places, in backward places, so that we really create a field for everyone. Thank you, Abdelaziz.
Thank you so much, Tintin, for this statement. Very, very strong statement. Of course, if we care for education, actually, I would like to thank all of you who are present with us as panelists. And as I told Robyn, the choice of these 6 people, albeit Daniel is not here with us, but we are going to speak as if he's here with us. The choice was done on purpose, was made on purpose, because we know that you have been very, very active agents in your communities trying to change the status quo. And the status quo, of course, can be changed. But as you said, Tintin, well, building communities and, you know, in the word opportunity, there is the word unity at the end. So opportunity ends with the word unity. So there is no opportunity without unity. If we want opportunity, we need to unite our efforts together to bring, well, joy, the joy of education. If education is joyful, of course, education is painful, but we can make it joyful. As someone commented, we need to make people love education. But how can we do it? If we unite our efforts together towards achieving a goal, that can be possible. That can only be possible. I don't believe that politicians are going to achieve something if we don't bring our agency in and try to do something about it. Okay, it's not possible. Thank you, Tintin. Maybe Karima, yes, Karima wants to add something. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to share with you the workshop I facilitated this morning in a neighborhood in the outskirts of Tangier. The schools in Morocco right now are going to be opening. The Moroccan government has called for the co-responsibility and the co-creation of the conditions for the continuity of the schooling of the best conditions possible of the children in our country. I think over 80%, and in Tangier, 90% of families have chosen to take back their children to school. Not only that, we have seen how the private sector, families that took their children to the private sector are coming back to the public sector in an incredible way. And that tells us a lot. That tells us a lot about what is happening today in Morocco. So the workshop I was facilitating was the young people in a neighborhood who are extremely active in the co-creation of conditions for the development of their neighborhood, and who today, with the school, are co-creating a learning ecosystem, a community-based learning ecosystem. So we have had the teachers in that school saying, this is how we're gonna reopen the school, and this is what we need, this is what, and please, we have fear when we feel that we are left by ourselves. The young people came from different neighborhoods, and they have committed to work together with the support of La Direction Provinciale of Tangier, with the support of the Parent Association, all the school staff, the director, the admin, the teachers, and the families, and the young people in the school. So when we say what kind of opportunities, what does this tell us in terms of sense of belonging? What does this tell us in terms of, yes, we believe in education? What kind of model these young people are giving to the children of this primary school? So I am extremely hopeful. We are seeing emerging right now a learning ecosystem with an incredible symbiotic relationship born between the school and the neighborhoods. Maybe the means are not there, but the resourcefulness, the creativity, and this word has been used a lot in the chat, the creativity and the innovative thinking of these young people is feeding this process. And what is more, is telling the school that society trusts you. So what kind of hope, or what kind of future we can hope for our children? Well, the first thing is to trust the young people in our countries, to not look at our young people in terms of how much education they have, but how big their hearts are. Because when our young people feel that their society trusts them, then creativity opens up. It's in our nature. Our creativity is our nature. We all see in our countries the innate entrepreneurship, neighborhoods growing, no architects, and you have a whole neighborhood. How creative, how innovative, how much entrepreneurship is all that? We see how families struggle with budgets, and they manage and they manage barely sometimes, but they do manage to manage those very, very small budget. We see so many things that we do not value because we are taught to value other things. Let's see what we have. Let's believe in the potential we have. And when our young people start believing in that potential, there's no limits to what we can do as a continent.
Yes, Karima, thank you so much. Thank you, Karima. Maybe we haven't heard from David. No, David was the first to speak. Yes, Kosi. Yes, Kosi.
Yes, I think Tintin just elaborated for us here on the fact that learning does not depend only on four walls, but through innovative ways of imparting knowledge. That video just brings us, it gives us a clear vision of what is actually happening in Africa. So it's important that we need now to be able to take the advantage and the opportunity that is brought by all these things that are happening around us, so that we can then be able to seize the moment, because technology brings the world together. We are all here from different spaces from across Africa. It is through the technology. So this, it's an indication that teaching in the near future, traditional teaching will be the thing of the past. Then therefore we need to be trying to come up with the creative ways in ensuring that our learners are able to gain those global skills, so that they can then be able to compete with other people in the world. So it's important that we align the curriculum that we are having in our schools, so that we can then be able to give the learners the opportunities to be able to compete in the global world. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for your participation and your contribution, of course. Robyn, I think we may give some time to the people who are present with us to share a few ideas around the questions that we have shared, or around the comments that we have heard from the panelists.
Yeah, so I would like to again invite our holding audience just to come in, and I think with 10 minutes left to go, what I'd like to invite, please, is put up your hands if you would like to make a live comment, but please in the chat group, which Abdelaziz, I hope that you're able to save for us, because that doesn't always come through on recordings, and there's a lot of value in this chat. Please, if you could share with us what has struck you most deeply from today's session. So not long, pithy, please. We'll have 3 or 5 people live. If you can just either put your hand up on the screen or unmute and turn your video off. And we would love to hear from today's holding audience. So we will, both you and I, Abdelaziz, must look around. Thank you, Beatrice.
Beatrice, you can unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you so much, Abdelaziz. My name is Beatrice. I'm from Kenya, a small town called Eldoret. I just want to add on what Karima has said, that we really need to be very creative and very innovative. In Kenya, we have something called SMASE, which talks about STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And in those classes, we are told to innovate and create everything that you can use for the students. And I think it has really helped us in making sure that we become very creative by using the things that we have to create and to learn with the students. In this pandemic of Corona, it is very difficult now that we are not going to meet with our students, but we can have meetings like this if we have the capacity, and make sure that we reach our students virtually, like what we are doing today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. I see that there was, Zuhair was unmuted. I'm not sure if it's because you want to speak or you were just accidentally unmuted. And then I see Doris. So Doris, let's start with you. And Zuhair, if you are keen to speak, just switch your video on so that I am aware. Doris, is you busy connecting to the audio again? All right. Anybody else want to just share with us their last takeaway, one thing that's really struck you? Mohammed, I see your video is on.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much. This has been a very, very enriching gathering. What struck me is actually the sheer grit that I'm seeing in the way each of the participants are talking about what their students are doing and what the teachers are doing to make sure that their schools work. It's very easy to talk about the challenges of resources, and as you've seen from other colleagues also in other continents, they will be talking about the same challenges of resources. But again, there is no, I would say, limit to resourcefulness, which is an entirely different approach. Resourcefulness is about agency, and it's about really the civic responsibility and the citizenship, where if we're talking about students as agents of change and teachers as agents of change, not just recipients and beneficiaries, I think it's important from that perspective that we talk about agency. And when we talk about agency, then we talk about transformation that is self-sustaining at the continental level and at the global level as well. So for me, there are important components to change. Or organizing, voices put together in an organized manner to sustain some kind of a transformation that is based on data, that's based on evidence, and this evidence is context specific. But at the same time, when we talk about resourcefulness, we should also be very mindful of sustaining resourcefulness, because it's easy to be a cynic. And the cynic in general is an idealist who turned the cynic, because in the beginning they had some gigantic ideals, but these ideals did not benefit from, I would call it, the pragmatic support of a structure, an organizational structure. And if we're not very intentional together as actors in different areas in pursuits under education about making sure that the organizations support the work we do, and be it human organizations, the institutions that we do, that we work with, then I'm worried that even our resourcefulness might, what's the word, might reach a snapping point. And we don't want that, because again, sometimes resilience is important, but when we request too much resilience, at some point that elasticity that you see in resilience ends and becomes so loose. So there is a lot of hope and aspirations, but at the same time, it has to be accompanied with intentional organizing that is focused on very, very specific goals that are specific to our context, and regardless of how small these goals, because once we start accomplishing and achieving little victories, then this is where we start getting communities working together and moving forward, because they are seeing that they're making progress. When Karima was mentioning the community involvement and community engagement and students' voices, it's part of a larger strategy that is really very intentional about making sure that people contribute, but at the same time, that those who contribute see some evidence in some results of their contribution, which in of itself fuels further work and further effort. Africa, just as Abdelaziz said rightly, is a continent with amazing resources. But again, I would say the same for Asia, in America, and everywhere else, because the common factor are the human beings who have all these amazing resources. But I think what we need to be very intentional about is really making sure that we organize these resources to achieve maximum impact. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I would like to share something with you before moving on very quickly. Let's see, this is something that, this is a graphic that, or chart that Robyn has already shared with us. And what it shows the occupation or affiliation of people who are here, who have attended, and those who have not been able to attend, because we had about 240 people who registered, but we have like 50% of people who registered attended, which is great. I've never had 50% of registered people attending a conference or webinar that I have organized, which is very, very interesting. This shows the interest of this topic of today to the people who have registered. What I would like you to see with me here is the number of participants and their affiliations. So we have the majority of people are teachers and students. And strangely, teachers 7.7% and students 7.7%. And of course, most of people who have been speaking today are either educators or teachers or professors. But mainly speaking, when Robyn and I have been discussing Africa Voices, we said that the most important voice in Africa Voices is the students' voices. So the students' voice is the most important voice. And that's what we want to do in next session. Maybe I'm anticipating, Robyn, but it's okay. That's how I do things. You just forgive me for that. So next time, next session, we would like to have students' voices heard. And we want to have a group of students maybe, or a couple of students sharing their experiences with us, their frustrations, their opportunities, and so on and so forth. One more thing, the color that is given to teachers automatically by the Excel, whatever it is green. So that's a sign of generosity, yes? Green. So we hope that all the educators and the teachers are going to be generous in giving to the students. Well, the color given to the students is blue, and you know, blue is the color of sadness. So maybe students are frustrated nowadays, no? So we hope that we are going to help them get less frustrated and less sad, as we all hope and wish. Oh no, stop that. Okay, Robyn, it's up to you. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Thanks, Abdelaziz. Do you want to just stop your screen share there? So I think we have reached the end of our time. We do want to try and keep to time to respect your guys' commitment. Thank you so much. What I would like before we leave to share with you is just to pick up from where Abdelaziz was, where he was talking about our hopes. So we believe that there is profound potential for this not this platform, but this opportunity. We don't believe that it's limited to this particular platform at all. The reason that we wanted to create this was because we felt that our voices were not heard and seen amongst ourselves, and we really wanted to create a space for that. And the intention here is not to control or make anything happen. It is literally to hold a space for connection and relationship between educators and learners and those who care about those issues on our continent, beyond our continent. Relationship first. So my personal belief always, it's relationship first. When we're in relationship, then our resourcefulness arises. When we're able to see each other, hear each other, believe in each other's voices, mirror back to each other in Karima's words, as she always uses, there's something particularly powerful that happens. So what we are hoping to do in terms of, we would like this to be an ongoing format. We'd like it to be a space. We'd like it to be a space that offers educators and learners on this content a safe space, a safe place to be together and to hear each other. And we believe that magic will arise out of that. What we are hoping for future sessions is to, as Abdelaziz said, really try and mobilize and activate and bring in the voice of our youth. It's not always easy to get young people. I know in South Africa we have a lot of issues around sort of the legislative ability to invite young people. But what we would like to do is have educators who perhaps invite their youth, even if it is through a written story, a recording, something, a drawing, something that they want to bring to share about their reality, their space, their experience of their school education, their hopes and dreams and aspirations, and what their life is, so that we can see that and honor it. And what we're hoping to do also is create a sort of zoom in, zoom out opportunity through these platforms. We will be sharing a follow-up questionnaire to kind of figure out what the timing should be, what kind of intervals, which days of the week, etc., suit best. But we're hoping to really zoom out, to look at the continent as a whole, have this type of dialogue across the continent, and then every second session zoom in and actually look at a specific country. What is happening in a specific country? What are the opportunities, challenges? What are the youth of that country experiencing? And it's an initiative in development. So we really hope that you've enjoyed this time. I know I have loved it. Thank you. And if you are interested, please, in profiling your country, in participating, in being one of the conversants in these dialogues. Unfortunately, we can't have 210 or 59 or 89 people all speaking simultaneously. So this format is kind of how we need to do it. Please do email us. Our email addresses are above. And thank you for joining us. It's been an utter pleasure. So if we could just have, I know there are 3 hands raised on the screen. I'll have a look for them. If we could just have a word from each of our panelists, and then afterwards, if you want to stay on, we'll hear from the 3 people who've had their hands raised. So let's close out with a goodbye and a thank you. Thank you to our beautiful panelists. We've loved having you. We've loved your voices. And if you could just greet us and say your final words, very brief, please, from each of you. And I'm going to nominate. Let's start with you, Karima, and then if you could nominate the next person, please.
Maybe as a final word, just to say, and I'll quote him again, as I started with him, that the lamps are different, but the light is the same. And when we learn to look at the light that's within us, then we evoke that light around us. So I thank you very, very much. It's been a privilege to be here today with you, and I'm very much looking forward to continue this beautiful humanizing process. Andrew, maybe you would like to go on.
Thank you so much, Karima, and thank you so much, Robyn. Thank you so much, Abdelaziz, and the panelists, and all the participants from Africa, from Europe, from the US, and from across the globe. It was a pleasure meeting you all. We have had a very exciting discussion, and we have recorded everything which we have discussed. And again, just the way I said at the beginning, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And we have actually dared to dream, to start this long journey. And my hope is that it will be interesting. But of course, we have to be open-minded, because what we want is what we want the best for our students to develop the global competencies, because through the global competencies, they can identify the solutions in the continent and across the world. And again, we form a kind of a knowledge hub through the Africa Voices Dialogue Series. So thank you so much. Back to you, Robyn.
You need to not hand to me, give to someone else on the panel. Thank you.
Kosi, I nominate you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks to everyone. It's really a privilege and an honor for me to be able to be part of this wonderful group. Thank you so very much for this thought-provoking conversation that really are needed, and the voices that we normally ignore. Thank you so very much, and for the participation of many other people, especially Maya Nen. For me, that takeaway for culture development, I think for me, I'm gonna be starting in on working on that and motivating, so that I'm able to reinforce the teaching and learning, so that we can have that progressive and not interrupted system. Thank you so very much, and have a lovely afternoon to everyone. Thanks. I nominate David for after me. Thanks.
David?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Thank you very much, Robyn and Abdelaziz, for this initiative, which gives us an opportunity to look at problems in synergy with synergy. I just want to say that one of the participants, who is based in the US, talked about problems they are grappling with related to racism. We also in Africa, maybe in some countries, we wrestle with issues related to tribalism, where you have different ethnic groups. And students, when they come to a school, they bring to the school their biases, the things they hear from their parents, from the community. And we see an opportunity for the school to be a melting pot, where students discover diversity, discover different views, and we encourage our teachers to be embracing and inclusive. So again, just to stress the importance of education as a key factor that can change society. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, Tintin.
Thank you. It is proven that more than 90% of fathers are generally absent from a kid's child life if their child is born disabled. It is also proven that almost 99.9% of mothers with a disabled baby stay with their baby till on and on. Therefore, as Africa, let's have an intentional decision of educating the African girl child. Because if the African girl child is educated, she can take care of those children that are left by absent fathers. Because she'll be able to stand with those kids, not just socially, not just emotionally, but financially too. Thank you, Abdelaziz. Thank you, Robyn, for starting the African Voices Dialogue. Thank you.
Fantastic. And so from me, thank you very much. We really hope that this is not a one-off, but that it has legs. It grows into something that has power, and the power comes through connection. So we just see an incredible web of connection and care across our continent. And we wish you all well as you go into the remainder of your weekend, and we will be connecting with each of you. So please do keep your eyes out for a mail from us. So that's me, and over to you, Abdelaziz. And then we will stay on the call for a bit longer because there were a few people, I think, who wanted to say something. But anybody who wants to leave after Abdelaziz, adios.
Okay, thank you, Robyn. Well, I think you'd better give the chance to those people who wanted to say something to go ahead and say it. We want to hear their voices. I think there, as you said, there are 3 people who have raised their hands. They wanted to say something. We have Ra Kabantu. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly.
So Ray Sean said she's okay. She actually doesn't need to share any longer. And I see there's another 1 or 2 hands up there. I just can't see them.
Me too. I just cannot see anyone raising their hands. Well, there was a question about, the like what is the ultimate goal of Africa Voices? You never ask a bird if it's going to fly until the egg hatches anyway. So we're in the process of, we're kind of building this community. And as I said, Robyn and I, and even the people who have contributed to the preparation of Africa Voices, including the names I mentioned at the beginning, are so ambitious about Africa Voices. We are so ambitious. We want to focus on agency, and we want to focus on what we can do as a community to help African students and African educators around Africa have better lives. That is to say, focus on what they want to achieve and learn for the sake of learning, not just for the sake of having jobs, as some of you have mentioned at the beginning, because it's not, the job is not the ultimate goal and should not be the ultimate goal at the end. So if teachers have a job, which is teaching is much more than just a job. It should be considered as much more than just a job. It's not just a job. So it goes beyond that. If nobody wants to take a few minutes to say a few things about what we have been discussing in this session, I'm just going to tell you thank you very much for being with us. Thanks to all the panelists. Thank you all for coming and joining us. And it's been quite 2 hours now, so I think it's time to say goodbye, Robyn. Goodbye, everyone. And see you in the next session.